Hello everyone. In today's demonstration we're going to go ahead and cover normal maps and specular maps. Now the first thing I need to do, this is where we left off on our previous video. The first thing I need to do with this is I'm going to click on my mesh and I need to assign a new material that can read normal maps as well as specular maps. As you can tell, I applied this to the Lambert. Typically not a good idea to do if you're going to do any more modeling in a scene, because then every model from that point is going to have that texture applied to it. So just an FYI. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a new material. I'm going to select blend and then I'll name my material projection material, and I'm going to assign the color here, file, and open. Now you'll see in here that in my projection material that I have a bump mapping, and this is where we're going to apply our normal map, and then we also have the specular map or specular color here. Now bump mapping really obviously it's still used, but it's not as commonly used anymore. When we apply a normal map, I'm gonna show you how to change some of the settings in here. Bump mapping, first of all, bump mapping and normal maps, they basically project depth on your material without the actual polygons being there. So it adds a lot more detail to your mesh and your texture by implying that depth is actually within that model, where it's not, it's just sort of pulling it from a texture file. It's really neat, so I'm going to show you how it works right now. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cover the specular color. Now I'm going to go ahead and open up Photoshop, and I already have my file open. This is my texture map, and what I'm going to do is, for my first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag this to new layer, and it's going to duplicate it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do filter 3D. It's as you can see, I already did it. 3D. Now there's generate bump map or generate normal map. Bump maps work primarily on grayscale, and the 3D software can only project depth from 2 dimensions, or 2 directions. Now a normal map will be able to project that depth from all 3 directions, X, Y, Z. So it's much more effective in a 3D environment for 3-dimensional, whereas this can only project 2-dimensional depth, and this can project 3-dimensional. So normal maps are the standard for today's modeling for almost every software. So we're going to go ahead and generate normal map, and it works primarily off a sort of this RGB color range. And what you could see here, it always projects it on a sphere. Most 3D softwares project your normal maps on a sphere. And if I go ahead and scrub around, you'll see. Now, you'll even see some of the text here. You can start to see some of the letters right in here. This part here and this part down here is the all black sequence here, if you can see on this one. And you're starting to see some of that depth, and you can even see projection demo. And that's how it's going to be able to read the texture map, the normal map, in Maya using these different color ranges RGB. So I'm going to keep the settings just as they are. Just to have a little fun, you can always check some of these other maps out. On the objects. I'm gonna go ahead and just shift this up and make sure I'm okay. So we could do wine bottle. That's always a fun one, I guess. It's just like this weird sort of shape, or a soda. And you can start to see some of the neat little details on different objects. I'm not sure if you're able to import your own objects in here. That would be awesome if you could. I honestly don't know off the top of my head if you can or not. I'm going to go back to the sphere. Oh, come on. Because this is the standard object that portrays what do you call it? Like how almost every 3D software will display your material will be on a sphere. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK. Okay. So that is my normal map. So I'm going to go ahead and save that out. Control Shift S, or File Save As. I'm going to save it out as a TGA. And I'm going to save it under Projection Demo Normal. Now another thing I'm going to do is, before I actually show you the specular map, let me show you what the normal map does. So in here under bump mapping, over here, bump mapping, go ahead and over here, click. We're going to do File, and we're going to use as tangent space normals. Okay? And then bump depth, or File 3 here. And from here, projection demo normal. Now you're not going to see any real big change on it yet. Maybe a little bit actually. I'm going to change my renderer. Oh, it looks like I only have viewport 2.0 now. From the right angles, you can start to see the depth on it. Can you see it? It's really weird they only have one renderer right now. Well, that'll be fine. There used to be 3 or 4 different renderers here. There would be just regular preview renderer, something called was it high quality rendering, and then viewport 2.0. And just out of curiosity, I'm going to quickly check to see if there's something I need to render settings. I don't know. Let's see if there's something in the plugin manager. High quality rendering is what I'm looking for. Doesn't look like it's there. Or preview. Nope, that's not there either. And I'll just take a quick look to see if there's anything else in here, because it's really odd. Every other version of Maya I've ever seen has it. And I don't see it. That's something I'll go ahead and look further into, why there isn't any other ones in there. But if you look, you can start to see the depth on here. Alright, so you can start to see some of that depth. Now the other thing I want to do, I'm going to select here, or I'm going to go back into Photoshop. I'm going to duplicate this layer. I'm going to apply it on top. And for this one, I'm going to do image. I'm not going to do anything too complicated, if you will. I'm just going to do image adjustments and black and white. For this one, I'm going to do auto, and then I'm going to press OK. Now, one thing to know about this is that the shinier the color, or the lighter the color, the shinier it'll appear on your mesh. So lighter in color would appear maybe more metallic items or something like that, whereas the darker colors will not have any sort of specularity on it. So let's go ahead and save this one out. And I'm going to save it out as Specular and click OK. And now I'm going to go back into Maya, and I'm going to do File. Oh, never mind. I'm going to do over here under Specular Color, File, and then I'm going to go Open and Specular, and now you should see a very big difference from before in specularity as opposed to before I applied this to now I applied it, and it doesn't have as much shine to it. And as you can tell, the black has zero specularity, whereas the little flowers do. Anyway, that's all I've got so far on adding texture maps to these. I would like to show you, I was hoping I could switch between they only have one renderer now. Anyway, that's all I've got for normal maps and specular maps. I'm going to attach, hopefully I can find another video on specular maps because they're really cool. But for now, at the most basic level, that is our 3 maps that are applied to typically any generic base mesh ready for display in a 3D software. So we have our diffuse or our color map or texture map or base texture map. That would be the colors in the projection demo, the first one we did. Then we have our normal map that displays depth. And then we have our specular map, which will show shininess on one part or another of your texture. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and stay tuned for the next one. Thanks for watching.